Hello everybody and welcome to Pravus Gaming and Imperator Rome, the latest addition to the Paradox Grand Strategy lineup, and I am very excited to be starting up a new series on this game today. The embargo did drop a few days ago, so technically I am late to the party. Other people have already been putting their content up on YouTube. But for me, I wanted to finish out a couple of those series before I started something new, and I wanted to get some more practice in. And that sounds all good in theory, except at this point, I just can't wait anymore. The game is too fun. I'm going to learn a lot simply by playing it on the channel. I just don't want to wait anymore. So we're not gonna. We're going to go straight into things. Now, some of you guys may have already seen this game on my channel. We did do a multiplayer stream hosted by Paradox not too long ago called Dividing the Spoils, and if you did tune into that, you are aware that I utterly humiliated myself by dying in the first 15 minutes. A very manageable 1v2 fight against the AI turned into a 1v5 that I simply could not handle, and I was just out of the game pretty early on. If you haven't seen the flop of Epirus video I did, I would recommend you check it out. In this series, I am going to be redeeming myself. We are going to be playing as the small Greek kingdom of Epirus, led under King Pyrrhus? How are you supposed to say that? Who was considered to be one of, if not the greatest military minds of his era. Although obviously not under our leadership. I'm going to be picking them up. We're going to redeem ourselves. We're going to play around with them, try conquering all of Greece, and experience as much content in this game as possible, just in a kind of casual playthrough. Now, keep in mind, I am by no means an expert at this game. I do understand all of the base mechanics, but finding the exact balance and knowing how to instinctively react to a different situation, not quite there yet. So going into the series, understand that it is going to be a learning experience. I am going to make mistakes and misunderstand things. It will happen, and I'm absolutely open to critique in the comment section or perhaps some explanations if I'm missing something. Just be patient with me. My goal in this series is simply to learn as much as I can, and then in the future, if people really like this game, we can try doing some really zany runs, such as conquering the world as Rome, or perhaps forming New Carthage, or playing as a Saxon tribe and colonizing and conquering the British Isles and forming a proper Anglo-Saxon Britannia. Lots of fun things that we will be able to do. For now, let's play as Epirus, and let's start with a very simple, small, achievable goal of conquering the entirety of Greece. And if we want to continue from there, we'll be able to do so. Now, this game begins shortly after the death of Alexander the Great and before the Diadochi Wars between the former generals of said Alexander the Great. You have Egypt, the Seleucid Empire, and so on. These guys will all be at each other's throats for control of Alexander's former empire. This is, of course, before the Grand Ascension of Rome, but they will be expanding very rapidly in the aftermath of his death. For us in Epirus, we have a rather interesting start. We start off with a pretty hefty amount of manpower and more troops than most of our neighbors, and the potential to go for a lot of early game conquest, and that is certainly what I attempted to do before. Now, this is not exactly going to be a tutorial series. I'm not an expert of the game. I don't want to be responsible for a tutorial exactly, but I will try to explain a lot of the mechanics early on so you guys can follow what I am doing. Some things are fairly obvious. Here's our money, here's our manpower. These things work exactly the same way they do in pretty much any Paradox game, including EU4, which this game has a lot of similarity to. We have military power, civic power, oratory power, and religious power. These are the special monarch points that we will be able to use for various different actions, whether it be military or technological, etc. Here's our stability, here is our aggressive expansion, which mostly just upsets a lot of people and our minority pops within our country, and here's our tyranny, which is a measure of how benevolent we are as a ruler, or at least perceived to be as a ruler. High tyranny means we are very oppressive, and it tends to upset people of your culture group inside your country, and cause a lot of other issues such as disloyalty from your generals. To start off, we are going to go ahead and grab some omens. Now, this is a religious thing, so we can spend religious power. If we go to the religion tab right here, we can spend religious power to get a special blessing from the gods. And I'm going to go for the blessing of Ares right off the bat because I intend on conquering pretty much right away. This is going to give me an extra 5.8% discipline. This works pretty much the exact same way as in EU4. It just makes your troops more effective, and the more that they can kill and the less damage they take, the better I'm going to be in a war. In the future, I might want to go for the blessing of Demeter for the extra population growth, perhaps Tyche for national unrest, or more manpower or money. There's a lot of really good options here. I don't think anything here is exactly bad. But the blessing of Ares should work fine. There goes all of my religious power. This is going to last until October of 455. So 5 years of a lot of extra discipline. Not bad. Here you can see our nation overview here. Here is our ruler. We do have some ideas that we can set up for our government, and these exact ideas do change, or the requirements do change for different government types. If you do complete ideas of the correct corresponding typage, you do get some bonuses. In this case, extra monarch points across the board if we get 1 military idea and 2 oratory ideas. So for example, what's a military idea? That would be, say, an extra 10% morale of armies, or cheaper triremes, or better reinforcement speed, etc. Oratory, monthly corruption reduction, general loyalty, opinion, one of these. We could, of course, pick up something that is not oratory or military, but then we would not get the bonus, which I obviously would really like. The only downside of doing this right now is it does cost oratory power, and I want to save my oratory power for an early claim so I can jump right into a war. So I'm not going to pick these up yet, but these will be pretty early goals for me. Let's go to technology. Technology is right here. And the way that this is going to work is you are going to be generating research points over time. This is partly affected by your stability. It is also determined by the number of citizens in your country. We will talk about that in a little bit. As you get research points, you will advance to different tech levels of martial, civic, oratory, and religious. Each tech level will give you some level, a sort of a benefit. For example, military will give you extra morale of armies and so on. But they also unlock different inventions. These are very important. If you spend some of your civic power, you can unlock a permanent bonus for your country. So for example, I would like to get aggressive protection. What this does is spend 100 civic power so that for the rest of the game, fabricating claims costs 10% less oratory power than it normally would. So we're going to go ahead and pick this up right here. And that is one of my 3 oratory technologies or inventions done and out of the way. We still have 100 civic power. I could go for something else. For example, we could go for more effective omens. We could go for armory morale recovery speed. We could go for taxes. More tech investment, so we advance through the tech pretty fast. There's a lot of different options here, and what's going to happen is we'll use up all of these, but when we get at the next level of technological advancement, 3 new inventions will be unlocked. It will override the ones that are currently available until you have gotten whatever is your current tech level, and then the old ones will become available again. So right now, for example, if we got to level 1 martial advance, these 3 would disappear. We'd have 3 new ones, and then if we picked any of those up, these guys would start to appear again. So you do typically want to get as many inventions as you can before you get to the next level, just so you don't fall behind and lock something that maybe you wanted a little bit later. In my case, I think I'm going to go for... The question is, do I want more money or do I want to go for better armies right now? I think we're going to want to get a bit more money. Right now, I am mostly making my money from taxes, not commerce, so I think I'm going to go for the property tax, which increases my national tax income by 5%. Not really extraordinary at this stage of the game, but it will get a little bit better as time goes on. Now, this is our army right down here. It has 12 cohorts of only archers right now, which is a form of light infantry. There are several different types of military units in this game, so it's not like EU4 where there's just infantry, cavalry, and cannons. If you go to the macro builder here for recruiting cohorts, you can see there's archers, camels, chariots, cavalry, light cavalry, horse archers, heavy infantry, light infantry, elephants, triremes, lots of cool stuff that we're going to need. The only downside is a lot of these cohorts do require some sort of a strategic resource to build. So for example, if we don't have iron anywhere in my empire, I cannot build any of these heavy infantry, even though they are quite good. And starting off as Epirus, I don't think that I have any strategic resources except for wood. I can build triremes, but that's about it. So we are going to be stuck to only archers and light infantry. Since we already have a bunch of archers, I'm going to go ahead and build 6 light infantry right off the bat. That spends some of my manpower and some of my money, but we will have a larger army that I will need to maintain. Light infantry are not really good against anything in particular. They do not use up a lot of supplies, so their attrition tends to be pretty low. And they don't take as much morale damage, so they're a pretty strong front line at first, at least compared to the archers. The archers take extra morale damage, which means they shatter very rapidly. They also don't use up very much supplies, but not as good as the light infantry. The advantage of archers is they have extra damage against other light infantry. But if they're going up against light infantry in a front line, they'll shatter faster. So we want to have a bit of a mix of both, I think. Have the light infantry in the center, and let the archers be doing as much of the flanking damage as possible. They'll be my DPS. These guys will keep the front line up and are running. At least such is the idea. We'll see what actually comes of it. Now let's talk a little bit about pops, because pops are a rather major aspect of the economy in this game. So for example, let's go to our capital here of Nicopolis. Nicopolis? I think that's how it is. You can see down here that we have several different populations, and this does actually seem a bit reminiscent of things like Victoria or perhaps Stellaris. A lot of people have made that comparison. 4 types of pops in the game. There's the citizens. Citizens give you research points, and they also increase the commerce value of trade. Trade is a very important way of making money. Going to a trade center like my capital, for example, and having a lot of citizens will greatly increase the amount of money we make as we start trading off our spare resources. Right now, we're not doing that, but in the future, we will. Second type of pop is the free man. The free man increases your manpower, and that's pretty much it. So we want to have a lot of these pops if we want to field a large army, and manpower is a very critical resource in this game. Very easy to lose, and if we go ever down to 0, it will take a full 25 years to get all the way back up to our cap. Ouch. So we want to have as many of these as possible. There's the tribesmen, which give a little bit of manpower, but they also provide a little bit of base tax income. Right now in this particular city, we don't have any. Tribesmen aren't very good at providing manpower or taxes. They just provide a little bit of both, and they're also a problem because they don't tend to like living in civilized nations. They're tribal. They want to live in uncivilized huts, and that is not something we intend on maintaining in Greece because we are a very civilized people. So we're not going to have a lot of tribesmen in this game, and even if we do, we want to civilize them as quickly as possible and then promote them to freemen and citizens. The final pop is slaves. We get these mostly through warfare or raiding. As we siege down enemy cities, for example, we might just take some of their population and enslave them. These guys tend to go back to the capital region. We can distribute them from there, and they just produce taxes. That's all that they are good for. If we have too many slaves in a city, there's always the risk that they will rise up and revolt. Slave revolt's, of course, a very bad thing. Don't want to have to deal with that. Now, how do we deal with our population in a country? I'm still working on that, but my belief is that you want to specialize the various different cities in every individual province for the maximum effect. And the reason for that is you can stack some modifiers with buildings. There are 4 buildings in the game. You can have a certain number of building slots based on the population. And you can have as many of the same building type as you want as long as you have slots for it. So, for example, we have the marketplace. The marketplace increases your civilization. It also increases your tax and your commerce income. So you can see that the marketplace actually makes a lot of sense to be placed in a city full of citizens and slaves to get the most possible economic benefit. There's the training camp, which gives local manpower, and this would be very good in a city that has a lot of freemen, for example. Freemen. There's the fort, which doesn't give any particular benefit. It exists just for a defensive structure and provides a zone of control, very similar to EU4. And finally, the granary, which increases your population growth and local slave happiness. A good thing to place in a city full of slaves. Also a good thing to place pretty much anywhere you don't have a lot need for marketplaces or training camps, just to increase your population so you can then distribute your pops into your specialized cities as much as you want to. So that's just the way that the buildings work. I know we've been talking a lot about just the base mechanics of the game, but I want to make sure you guys are fully up to speed before we jump too far into things. Let's look at trade routes real quick. That is the next pop-up we have over here. Trade routes will allow you to pick up some sort of a special good and import it to your capital, which gives a benefit across your nation. Every different trade good provides a different benefit. These are the strategic resources you need to train certain types of units, such as horses or elephants. Grain is going to be very important for me. It increases your population growth, and every time you have a surplus in, say, the capital, you get an extra 10% national manpower, which is pretty nice. You also get a benefit if you export your surplus goods. So we will be wanting to do that, as well as getting a lot of extra money. Then there's things that make people happy. There are military ones that give extra defense, or perhaps cohort recruiting speed, etc. There's research points, there's taxes, there's commerce income, so on and so forth. Ultimately, you want to have a lot of different trade goods in your empire to give as much happiness and as many strategic benefits as possible. We don't have anything we can access right now, but once we start the game, I think a lot of extra AIs will say, hey, we have resources for export, and then we can finally pick up something. Right now, we have a surplus of fish in our capital province, and what this does is give extra population growth for every surplus fish we have in the country by 0.02%. Not very substantial. I'd be very happy to export this in exchange for money, if we could. Lack of commander is something we do need to deal with, so right over here in our main army, we need to assign a general, or some sort of a commander. Here's all the different characters that we could assign, and here's their corresponding military score. We can see how loyal they are currently, whether or not they are popular with the mob, or very prominent, which is dangerous. If your generals get too popular, they might have ambitions of their own. Then there's a bunch of different little traits. So, for example, Gorgos, however you say that, He's brave, which increases his morale of armies, but there's a lower chance that he is going to... a higher chance that cohorts will become loyal to him and not to me. That is a risk I might be willing to take in exchange for an extra 5% morale of armies, and he is 48 years old. He might die sometime in the near future. So let's go ahead and make him the leader of this archer army. And as we train up more troops, we will add them to the pile. Our triremes also could use a commander. Do we have anybody with... Well, see, this guy's good at enslaving people, which is kind of nice. Do we have anybody who is really good with ships? I don't see any evidence of that. So I'm going to pick somebody fairly middle of the road. I think I might want to save the 6th Marshal guy for something else. I don't know if I want to use this guy up because enslavement efficiency is pretty nice. So, oh, but that guy's even better at them. Oh, man. I don't know. All right, you know what? We will go for the 6th Marshal guy. We'll make him my admiral. I don't know if we're going to use these guys at all, but I'd like to have some good ships available. Now, this I'm not going to explain too much right now, but there are a bunch of families in your country. And if they don't have any sort of role, if they're a prominent family and don't have a role in your government, they will feel scorned and become rather unhappy with you. This says we have a bad research ratio. And what we should be doing with that is promoting freemen up to citizens so we can get extra research points. I'm not going to worry about that right now because the next thing I want to do is fabricate a claim on our southern neighbor, Acarnania. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We did have the cost reduction, so it's a tiny bit cheaper. We are going to fabricate a claim on the province of Epirus. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Now, the province of Epirus, if we look over here in the map mode, you can see this is my province of Epirus. This is my capital region. We just fabricated a claim, I think, on these 2 pieces of land right over there. Yeah, we didn't get a claim over here, but we did get a claim on these 2. Which means when we go to war with these guys, we want to siege these 2 down as fast as possible, and that's how we get the bulk of our war score. Though, of course, sieging down anything else is certainly going to be nice as well. Okay, anything else we need to show off right now? I mean, there are different map modes. For example, the culture showing all the different Greeks. There is a religion map mode showing that Hellenic religion is all over the place right now. You can see all the different trade goods. You can see the populations. You can see fortifications down over here. We do know they're going to have a fort, etc., etc. There's a lot of different things to look at, but I think now we can go ahead and start playing the game. I've tried to lay the groundwork the best I can, and I know it took 15 full minutes to do that, but hopefully you will forgive me because this is a new and exciting game. Daidamia and Demetrius. The political situation has evolved quickly since the start of the Diadochi conflicts. Every state in the Hellenic world is deciding who to support, and hoping that they will have backed the right horse. For our own part, it has been suggested that King Pyrrhus' sister, Daidamia, previously betrothed to Alexander the Great's late son, would make a good match with Demetrius, son of Antigonus, and heir to the Phrygian kingdom, which is right over here in Anatolia, a pretty big player. The antagonists could be the friends that we need. We could go for the marriage, or we could say Phrygia hates me because we do not fulfill our marriage obligations. I say we go ahead and try to get Phrygia to like me. Maybe good things come out of that. Maybe it doesn't. There it is, Daidamia and Demetrius. After long months of deliberation, the Phrygians have formally agreed to our marriage proposal. Upon her arrival in Phrygia, or Phrygia, I don't know how it's said, Daidamia's chariot was escorted in an opulent procession through Antigonia, there we go, to the royal palace where she bit the ceremonial apple presented by Demetrius. They were then married in a lavish ceremony attended by hundreds of guests and showered with gifts, followed by a royal banquet with feasting and reveling long into the night. As a result, we like each other a lot better. Huzzah! Little things like that are going to happen. Be aware, I'm going to mispronounce all sorts of things. I don't think there's any way around that. Now, down here, Acarnania seems to be deleting a lot of their troops, which is something I've observed the AI does at the beginning of the game. So they also started with nothing but archers, and I think the AI is looking at that and saying, nothing but archers is a bad idea. Get rid of some of those, and they're going to start training up some new light infantry to fill the ranks instead. So now is actually a pretty good time to try and jump on them, if at all possible, while they are still weak, but we'll see. So Acarnania has currently no allies. Now, as you may have seen in the multiplayer game, that does not necessarily mean you're going to have an easy time of things, okay? It is entirely possible that an AI will ally them after the war has already begun and join in on the fight. That's what happened to me, and it became a 1v5, and it was extremely unpleasant for everyone involved, especially me. However, after talking to the developers, it sounds like there is a strong opinion malice to do so. So in EU4, the way this works is just there's reasons to do something and reasons not to do something, right? Positive and negative reasons. Allying somebody who is already at war is a significant negative reason to do something. The fact that 3 more AIs decided to overlook that malice and join in the war was phenomenally unlucky for me when I started my campaign. Even so, we're going to go ahead and try to do things. I'm going to go ahead and call in my ally. We do start with one ally up here, Talantia, or wherever they're called. We have our claim, take Epirus. We could start a war even without a claim anytime we want. Show military superiority, for example. However, if you do that without a casus belli, then it tends to cause a lot of instability in your nation and generally leads to a bad time. We always want to have a war goal if possible. Let's go ahead and declare the war. Okay, so we will see if anyone ends up joining in on this. So far, things are looking pretty good for me, and we are going to go ahead and send some troops to try and stomp on him if possible, and then we're going to back some troops up so we don't take a ton of attrition. So let's keep an eye on these guys and see if anyone ends up joining in on the war. If we get overwhelmed, then, well, bad things are going to happen for me. But maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll be fine. Let's take a look at the trade routes and see if anything has become available. The answer to that appears to be no, and that's partly because we don't have enough civic power to actually begin a trade route. It does cost some, so that's part of why we do not have much. But I'm okay with that for the time being. We should be able to stomp these guys pretty quickly. Still, nobody has joined the war. They have 1 year to join the war. If they do not join, then there's not going to be any extra help. Period. Done. All right, we lost 838 troops, but we killed 1,014. Now we have begun a proper siege. Now, sieges, of course, just like in EU4, do take a long time. It does cause attrition with your armies, and since manpower is a very precious resource, I'm not eager to leave all my troops over here to die. Just definitely don't want to do that. So, can we split off a siege, for example? Detach enough cohorts to siege or occupy this province? Sure. And what that's going to do is we can now pull these guys off. We're going to leave behind a full 7,000 troops, and the rest will sit over here in Ambracia, not taking attrition, and if we have to reinforce, we'll be able to do so. Acarnania still does not have any allies, so this is obviously going far better than the multiplayer stream already. And you can see here that there is a minus 35% chance of winning the siege and having them surrender right now. Now, you can see down over here the calculations involved. So every time a siege phase occurs, there is a dice that rolls, depending on whatever siege modifiers you have, like, let's say, a blockade, for example, or a better commander, that is added onto your roll. And you can see that if we rolled, for example, a 1, there would be a disease outbreak, which harms my troops. If we rolled, let's say, a 14, there would be a water shortage, which is a positive siege modifier for me that makes it easier to take them in the future, and so on. We would have to roll a 20, which is impossible with a 1 to 14 dice, hence why there is a 0% chance of winning the siege right off the bat. We're going to go ahead and... Actually, there's no point in pulling the triremes out. I was about to say we could blockade, but they don't have any ports. So I guess I don't see a reason to do that at all. Now, you might say, why don't you just go ahead and start sieging this stuff down over here? The answer is we can't. Just like in EU4, forts do exercise a zone of control. So once we are in the zone of control around the fort, we cannot go anywhere else inside that zone. We can leave it, but we can't go anywhere else. So we have to siege this down if we want to get to our actual war goal, which we should be able to do. Anyone else joined? Nope. So this is going as perfectly as it can, honestly. Really nothing going wrong here. How's our money situation? We are losing a little bit. If I could start exporting away a few goods, we could probably fix a lot of our economic woes, but that's going to be a little while, I think. So he's training up as many troops as he can. He's trying to get up to about 7 or 8 cohorts. But we have plenty to deal with him in the future, so I'm not too worried about it. I do wish... Wait. Okay, hang on. Somebody just allied with Acarnania. Are they joining the war? The answer is yes. So these guys right over here, Botia. Again, they had a negative reason to join in a war with somebody, or ally somebody already in a war, but they said, screw it, we're joining. Hence why we now have another major force involved. I really don't want to fight these guys because they're far away, not easy to maintain for me. I don't want to take any of their land, and they're going to contribute a lot. So the faster I can siege this down and then get the war goal, probably the better. But that's why we have these guys sitting around in case we need to reinforce sooner rather than later. Right now we have 11 cohorts, it looks like, against our, what, 22? I think it is. Maybe it's 18. I think it is 18. Never mind. Okay. Here comes our ally, Talantia, down over here. They're going to contribute another 7,000 men. Of course, every cohort is 1,000 men, so that's why I can say things like that. Did make some siege progress with the food shortage. Now we can have a +6 onto our roll. So the minimum we can roll is a 7. which means only good things can happen for us at this point. A supply shortage will guarantee advance an additional siege modifier for me. Really, well, actually, wait. Is a supply shortage a bad thing? Is that for them or is that for me? I can't remember for sure. Either way, our odds of actually winning the siege have gone up, and they will continue to go up as time goes on. Now we are up to a 21% chance of surrender, and so on. I don't think you need to be sending more troops over here, but all right, if you want to send more troops onto the war goal, you're increasing my attrition, which I don't like, but all right. No, it's probably fine. Boeotia, still nobody else. They're not sending any troops over here. I don't think they can get the military access through Aetolia that they need, so that's why they're not getting involved. The Hellenistic city of Corcyra decided to send me some money. How very nice of you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. A call to arms by Talentia over here. Who did you start getting into war with? You got into war with Aetolia and Corcyra, so these guys right over here. What happened? So you're in a defensive league with the people we are already at war with. Ironically, if we join in this war, we will be fighting Aetolia, which means that Boeotia actually will be able to get over here and fight me. Do I want to join this war? I don't think I have much of a choice. I think I do have to join, which is a bit of a pain, but I think is still technically the right call. Maybe eventually I can separate peace out and get some extra land for myself. So now we're at war with all these guys. I'm going to go ahead and send these 11,000 troops up to Corcyra. We're going to kill these guys before they can do any damage. Let's get a general assigned. With enslavement efficiency? Sure, why not? As long as, or what are they called? Talentia keeps their troops over here, I feel relatively confident that we will be safe. I want to make sure these guys do not stop into my front line and cause some damage. Now, here's one change in Imperator Rome as opposed to EU4. An enemy fort can exercise a zone of control over your own land. So, for example, they have a fort right here in their capital city. That has a zone of control in my territory in Phonike, whatever you call it. Hence why it is flipping over to them right now. They will get control of this without actually sieging it down. That is different from EU4, something to consider. Neoptolemus, my primary heir, gains Montenegro, whatever that is. What is this? Your health goes down, and hence why you lose charisma. Not especially good for somebody that's supposed to be my heir, but okay. Can we do a trade route now? The answer should be yes. No strategic resources available. All right, unfortunate. Could go for something that makes my population happy. I don't need to care about tribes. Could go for things like vegetables for supply limits and so on. I think what I'm going to do is trade for grain. Grain increases my population growth, and having a surplus in the capital increases that manpower as well. So we're going to go for this. We'll trade with, let's say, Scythia. Okay, so there goes one of my trade routes, the only one I have in my capital province. And now we have grain, which is giving all cities in Epirus an extra population growth. More population we have, the better we're going to be doing economically, which is obviously quite good for me. He is now trying to get through my lands, which I don't think you should be allowed to do. But I guess he doesn't have to worry about his own zone of control. So we're going to pop into this fight. He's got 9 cohorts against my 11. If this guy sticks around with heavy infantry, that gets even easier. How did you get any heavy infantry? That seems unfair. And he's sending extra reinforcements, so we should be able to win this pretty easily. There are terrain penalties you have to consider. For example, these are farmlands, so there is no negative penalty there. Okay, he's turning around and leaving. Let's go up here and see if we can't catch these guys, or at the very least begin the siege of his capital province. Wait, now I have to turn around. He's coming back. Okay, we're apparently just going to have a standoff for a little bit. Maybe we don't worry about Corcyra for now. He's going to go siege down the war leader. I'll worry about winning this fight as early as possible, and then we'll knock them out. What's this? Military access? Yes, you may have military access. You are my ally after all, aren't you? All right. So let's just pay attention to this and make sure nothing gets totally out of control. Looks like Boeotia actually cannot defend Corcyra because they are already involved in a war, so that actually makes things a little bit easier. But we are doing a 2v4 fight at the moment. 42% chance of getting this zone of control. Really would like to get that under my control ASAP. So here's the fight. And what's going to happen right now is all the troops are going to line up in one big row, and they're going to attack the target in front of them. If there is no target in front of them and they have enough movement, then they will try to do a flank, which does extra damage, which is what's happening right now. So the archers are going to be picking off the center as fast as they can. We have a few extra light infantry in the group, so they are flanking these guys, so they're taking damage from 2 fronts right now, hence why we might be able to collapse the flank and push in on the center. There are different tactics involved. So right now, both of us are using the shock action, shock tactic. Probably not the best for us right now, but I'm not going to worry about changing it until probably the next video. His morale is shattering pretty quick, and we did just win the siege of Stratos. So that's nice. We also captured a population and distributed them as slaves. However, it looks like they just died instead of actually going to my capital province, which is obviously unfortunate for me. Military access, sure, by all means, you may have that. We are shattering his lines pretty quickly. He can't go much of anywhere. I do not think that these light infantry can reach the center. It may be too far away. Cavalry, we have very high movement and therefore are fantastic at doing the flanking. So we would love to get horses if at all possible, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right, let's go siege the war goal real quick. And actually, this province will flip automatically, so maybe we don't worry about that. Maybe we turn around and head over... You know what? No, we head down over here and try to get some extra sieging. If I can separate peace out with Aetolia, that'd be fantastic, but I don't think you can flip, switch out in a separate peace out war, is what I mean to say, until like 36 months or so into a war. So we are not going to be able to abandon them. We do, however, see 2,000 Aetolian men over here that we should be able to crush even with a straight crossing penalty. The statue of Pyrrhus, whatever. The people of Torone have raised a large statue of our esteemed ruler. Though the statue is lacking in certain important areas, it would not be taken well if we were to rip it down. If we leave the statue up, let us hope it does not go get too well known, as it could be somewhat of an insult to the monarch. We are grateful for this honor to the nation. We lose popularity with the people, but Torone gets local unrest, which I guess is okay. So hopefully we can get more popularity as a ruler in the future, but for now, I'll live with it. Now, he's trying to siege his land back, but he doesn't actually have enough men to do so successfully, so he's not a threat to us at all at this point. If we can siege this province down, we will technically own the war goal, which means piecing out will get a lot easier. Case in point, if we go to them right now, sue for peace, we could demand that they give us both of these lands, and they would do so. Do you have anything else? I don't think so. I thought for a second that these guys belong to Arcanania, but I don't think they do. So that actually is the end of this war if we wanted to. We could just sue for peace and end things right now, take this land, and move on. And I'm kind of okay with that. We'll also take all of your money, 65 gold. And we're just going to go ahead and end the war right now. Boom. Now we get to decide what to do with the remaining elite families in Arcanania. We could execute all of them, and that gives me extra popularity with the people before the cheering crowds in Nicopolis. Alternatively, we could banish them, which reduces my aggressive expansion for taking land. Alternatively, we could imprison them and decide what to do with them later. That does make me lose popularity. Or we can decide which ones we want to let live and which ones we want to integrate and which ones we want to execute. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and... let's see, how much does this tick down? 0.8 per month. We're just going to go ahead and reduce the aggressive expansion. Let's not let that tick up too much. But now we have a lot of extra money, which is certainly going to be fantastic. Let's go ahead and move these troops up over here. I do not like that he is sieging down my lands, and we do not have a fort here, so they can actually come marching into my territory. Is Boeotia going to join this war after the fact? Good question. I don't really know for sure. Let's not worry about it. Let's just siege down whatever we can get, and hopefully we end up picking up some extra land in this war. That is all the time that we have. I know I spent half of it, and actually more than most of it, simply talking about various different mechanics and explaining what I can. But I really want to learn as much as I can about this game. I think it is very, very fun, and I want to play it a lot in the future. I want to make sure all of you can follow along with what I'm doing without being too overbearing. If I'm going too far in this, please let me know in the comment section down below, and I will try to tighten things up and just play instead of talk so much. But for our opening moves, we've already made a conquest. This is obviously a much better start than we had at the beginning of the game in my multiplayer stream, so I'm already feeling a lot better about this. We're going to conquer all of Greece, and it's going to be amazing. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If so, then I would ask that you hit that like button, show your support in the comment section down below, subscribe if you have not already, and hit that notify bell. My name is Pravus, and I will see you guys next time.